November 5th, 1975. As the sun disappeared behind the forest of northeastern Arizona, a crew of 7 forestry workers packed up their equipment and began the long drive home. Had been a normal day. The men had spent hours clearing brush and thinning timber in the rugged wilderness near Snowflake, Arizona. They were tired, dirty, and eager to get home. But on that evening, something happened that would change their lives forever. As their truck wound through a remote mountain road, one of the men suddenly spotted a strange glow through the trees. At first, they thought it might be a plane, maybe a helicopter, but as they rounded a bend, they saw something that didn't resemble any aircraft they had ever seen. Hovering above a clearing was a brilliant metallic object, radiating an intense golden light. The truck came to a stop. For several moments, the crew simply stared. No one spoke. No one could explain what they were looking at. Most of the men wanted to leave immediately, but one of the men felt compelled to get closer. 22-year-old Travis Walton stepped out of the truck and began walking toward the object. What happened next would become one of the most debated events in UFO history. As Travis moved closer, the object became even more extraordinary. The craft appeared to hover silently above the ground, suspended in the air without any visible means of propulsion. Later estimates would place it at roughly 20 feet in diameter, glowing with an intense golden white light. The other men remained inside the truck watching nervously. By their accounts, Travis had approached to within just a few feet of the object when everything suddenly changed. A brilliant beam of light erupted from beneath the craft. The blast struck Travis directly. According to the witnesses, the force lifted him off the ground and hurled him backward through the air. The crew was terrified. Believing they had just witnessed their friend being killed, the men panicked and sped away from the scene. For several moments, fear took over. The truck raced down the dark forest road as the men shouted over one another, trying to process what they had just seen. But as the initial shock began to fade, something else set in: guilt. They had left Travis behind. Realizing this, the crew turned the truck around and headed back towards the clearing. The entire trip back took only a few minutes, yet when they arrived, the object was gone. The light had vanished, the clearing was silent, and Travis Walton was nowhere to be found. No body, no signs of his struggle, no explanation. Only an empty patch of forest where moments before 7 men had witnessed something they would never forget. As news of Travis Walton's disappearance spread, local authorities launched a massive search operation. Volunteers, law enforcement officers, tracking dogs, and helicopters combed the forest surrounding the area where he had last been seen. Days passed, yet despite the extensive search effort, there was no signs of Travis, no body, no evidence of an animal attack, no indication that he had simply wandered off into the wilderness. Investigators quickly turned their attention to 6 men who had been with him that night. And there was one detail that immediately raised concerns. Earlier that same day, Travis had reportedly gotten into an argument with one of his coworkers. To investigators already struggling to believe a story involving a hovering craft and a beam of light, the disagreement provided a possible motive. Some began to suspect the crew was hiding something. Perhaps a fight had escalated. Perhaps Travis had been killed accidentally. Perhaps the UFO story was nothing more than an elaborate cover-up. But there was a problem within that theory. All 6 men essentially told the same story. Separately interviewed, each described seeing a strange object hovering in the clearing. Each described Travis approaching the craft, and each described a brilliant beam of light striking him before he disappeared. The story sounded unbelievable, yet the men never wavered. As suspicion mounted, members of the crew agreed to take polygraph examinations. The results became one of the most debated aspects of the case. While not everyone agrees on the reliability of polygraphs, several of the men were reported to have passed examinations regarding the core events of that night. For investigators, the case was becoming increasingly difficult to explain. Then, 5 days after he vanished, everything changed. In the early morning hours of November 10th, Travis Walton suddenly reappeared, alive, exhausted, and carrying a story that would make the mystery even stranger. For 5 days, Travis Walton was missing. When he finally returned, he claimed that it only felt like a couple of hours had passed. According to Travis, he regained consciousness lying on a table inside a strange room. His first sensation wasn't fear, it was confusion. The last thing he remembered was a beam of light striking him in the forest. Now he found himself surrounded by unfamiliar walls, strange equipment, and several small humanoid beings. Terrified, Travis immediately assumed he had been captured. Acting on instinct, he lashed out. He later recalled striking one of the beings and being surprised by how light it felt. Grabbing a nearby cylindrical object, he began swinging it at an attempt to defend himself. The beings retreated. Looking back decades later, Travis would describe the experience as deeply traumatic, but he also suggested that his reaction may have been driven by fear and misunderstanding. One detail in particular would change how he viewed the encounter. Travis recalled having difficulty breathing. He felt weak, disoriented, and increasingly panicked. Rather than retaliating, he believed the beings seemed focused on calming him. He later speculated that they may have been attempting to soothe him through some form of telepathic communication. Then something changed. The smaller beings disappeared, and Travis found himself face to face with someone completely different. Standing before him was what appeared to be an ordinary human being, athletic in build, with long hair, and wearing what Travis described as a clear helmet. The figure looked nothing like the beings he had just encountered. Desperate for answers, Travis began asking questions, but the man never spoke a word. Instead, he took Travis by the arm and led him deeper into the structure. According to Travis, the human-looking man guided him into a much larger area. Almost immediately, he noticed something different. The suffocating sensation he had felt earlier began to fade. For the first time since waking up, he felt as though he could breathe normally. The room itself was unlike anything he had ever seen. Bright, clean, and far larger than the chamber where he had first awakened. There, Travis encountered additional human-looking individuals. Unlike the smaller beings he had fought with earlier, these figures appeared almost completely normal. No oversized heads, no large black eyes, no obvious signs that they were anything other than human. Again, Travis demanded answers. Who were they? Where was he? What happened to him? But once again, no one responded. The figures remained silent. As the moments passed, Travis began feeling increasingly weak. Whether from exhaustion, injury, or something else entirely, he could feel his strength fading. The individuals guided him toward a table and gently laid him down. Then one of them produced a mask. Travis later described it as transparent, almost like a clear oxygen mask. Before he could resist, it was placed over his face. Within seconds, everything went black. The next thing he remembered was waking up on the side of the road near Heber, Arizona. Confused and disoriented, he looked up into the night sky. Above him, he claimed to see the craft one final time. Then it accelerated away and vanished into the darkness. At first, Travis believed only a few hours had passed, but when he finally reached a phone and contacted his family, he learned the truth. He hadn't been gone a few hours, he had been missing for 5 days. And while the mystery of his disappearance had ended, the debate surrounding what happened to him was only beginning. For Travis Walton, the experience didn't end when he returned home. In many ways, it was only the beginning. Almost immediately, his story became national news. Newspapers covered the case. Television crews arrived. Researchers, skeptics, and curious members of the public all wanted answers. Some believed Travis had experienced one of the most important UFO encounters ever reported. Others were convinced it was a hoax. The scrutiny was relentless. Investigators examined the witnesses. Doctors evaluated Travis. Researchers conducted interviews, hypnosis sessions, and countless examinations in an effort to determine what had happened during those missing 5 days. Yet through decades of attention and controversy, Travis never abandoned the core of his story. What did change was how he interpreted the experience. In the years immediately following the incident, fear dominated his memories. He had awakened surrounded by strange beings. He had fought them. He had believed he was in danger. But as the years passed, Travis began reconsidering some of those events. He became increasingly convinced that the beings may not have been trying to harm him at all. In fact, he would later suggest that the beam which struck him in the forest may have severely injured him. If that was true, then the beings he encountered might not have been captors. They may have been attempting to save his life. According to Travis, the smaller beings never attacked him, even after he struck them. Instead, he felt they were trying to calm him. And after decades of reflection, he began to wonder if fear and misunderstanding had shaped his perception of what happened that night. It was a dramatic shift. the man who once viewed the experience as a terrifying abduction was now asking a very different question. What if the beings had been trying to calm him all along? As Travis continued speaking publicly about his experience, another question began to emerge. What if the events of 1975 weren't the beginning of the story? What if they were only the most dramatic chapter? During later interviews, Travis described an unusual experience from his childhood. He recalled lying in bed one night when he experienced what he believed was a vivid encounter. According to Travis, he remembered being lifted from his bed and seeing a small humanoid figure. The experience was brief, confusing, and dreamlike. When he told others about it, few believed him. Even Travis himself has acknowledged that childhood memories can be difficult to interpret with certainty. Was it a dream, a false memory, or something more? The answer remains unknown. But the story becomes even more interesting when looking at his family history. Years before Travis disappeared into the Arizona wilderness, his brother reported witnessing a strange object of his own. According to Travis, his brother described seeing a tic-tac-shaped craft hovering below the treetop level before suddenly departing at incredible speed. The sighting occurred long before the famous 1975 incident. To believers, these experiences raise an intriguing possibility. Perhaps Travis's encounter wasn't random. Perhaps whatever intelligence he encountered that night had been present in his life long before he stepped out of that truck. Of course, skeptics offer other explanations. Memory is imperfect. Stories can evolve over time. And extraordinary experiences often take on new meanings as people reflect on them years later. Yet for Travis, these events formed a pattern that suggested the mystery may have begun long before the night he vanished. And if that wasn't strange enough, decades later, Travis would describe an event involving his own son that convinced him the story still wasn't over. Of all the experiences Travis Walton had discussed over the years, one of the most personal had nothing to do with the craft in the sky. It involved his son. According to Travis, the event occurred years after the famous 1975 incident. One night, while sleeping at home, everything seemed completely normal. His daughters were asleep in their room. His sons were asleep in a bunk bed in their room. Travis and his wife were asleep as well. Then something happened that he still struggles to explain. Without any warning, Travis suddenly found himself awake and moving. Not slowly waking up, not hearing a noise, not responding to a cry for help. According to Travis, he went from being sound asleep to running down the hallway. He entered his son's room and immediately saw that something was wrong. His son had slipped beneath the safety rail of the top bunk. The position had trapped him. He was unable to breathe properly, unable to call for help, unable to free himself. Had Travis arrived only minutes later, the outcome could have been tragic. What disturbed Travis most was not what he found, it was how he got there. To this day, he maintains that nothing physically woke him up. No sound, no cry, no obvious reason. Yet something compelled him to get out of bed and go directly to his son's room at that exact moment. Years later, Travis shared this story during an appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, describing how he went from being sound asleep to suddenly running down the hallway without knowing why. For Travis, the experience felt familiar. It reminded him of the strange events that followed him throughout much of his life, and while he stops short of claiming certainty, he has openly wondered whether the same intelligence he encountered decades earlier may have somehow intervened. Skeptics, of course, offer more conventional explanations. Parents often remain subconsciously aware of their children, even while asleep. A faint sound or subtle disturbance could have triggered an instinctive response without Travis consciously realizing it. But for Travis, the timing was too precise to dismiss. Whether coincidence, intuition, or something far stranger, the experience reinforced a belief he had slowly developed over the years. The beings he encountered in 1975 may not have been acting out of hostility. If anything, they may have been trying to protect him. At this point, it's worth asking a question that rarely gets enough attention. What exactly was Travis Walton dealing with? For decades, the common assumption has been simple: aliens. Case closed. But the more closely we examine reports like Travis's, the more complicated the picture becomes. Consider the beings he described. The first entities he encountered were small, pale, and unlike any human being, your classic greys. Yet later in the experience, he claimed to encounter individuals who appeared almost completely human. Some may call these the tall whites or Nordics. Not only did they look different, their behavior appeared different as well. And Travis's story is far from unique. Across thousands of reports collected over decades, witnesses have described an astonishing variety of entities. Small gray beings, tall human-like figures, strange luminous forms, shadowy presences, and in some cases, beings that appear almost angelic. If these reports are describing a genuine phenomenon, why are the experiences so different? Why do the entities vary so dramatically? And perhaps most importantly, why do their intentions seem so different? Some witnesses describe fear, others describe healing, some report deception, others report guidance. The question is difficult to ignore. What if we have been making a mistake? What if we have been assuming that every encounter comes from the same source? What if they don't? One possibility is that many of these encounters are neither good nor evil, just misunderstood. After all, human beings routinely capture, tag, tranquilize, and study animals. A bear doesn't understand why it's being sedated. A whale doesn't understand why it's being tagged. From the animal's perspective, the experience is terrifying. Yet the intent may be scientific rather than malicious. Could some reported encounters represent something similar? An advanced intelligence studying humanity in ways we simply don't understand? If so, the fear reported by witnesses may tell us more about the limitations of human understanding than the intentions of the entities themselves. But Travis Walton's story points towards another possibility. Over the years, he has increasingly suggested that the beings may have been attempting to help him. The beam that struck him in the forest may have injured him. The procedures he experienced aboard the craft may have been medical rather than hostile. And decades later, Travis would even speculate that the same intelligence may have intervened to save his son's life. If he's correct, then at least some encounters may involve intelligences that are not indifferent at all. Perhaps they are protective, perhaps they are curious, or perhaps they see humanity as something worth preserving. Yet not every account paints such a positive picture. Many witnesses describe deception, manipulation, fear, and experiences that leave lasting psychological scars, which raises another possibility. What if we're not dealing with a single intelligence? What if the phenomenon is far more diverse than we realize? Just as humanity contains explorers, scientists, teachers, criminals, and predators, perhaps the same is true for whatever is interacting with us. Some benevolent, some indifferent, some hostile, and some whose motivations remain completely beyond our understanding. Nearly 50 years have passed since Travis Walton disappeared into the forest of Arizona. Yet the questions surrounding his experience remain as powerful today as they were in 1975. Was Travis the victim of an extraordinary encounter? Did he experience something beyond our current understanding of reality? Or is there another explanation waiting to be discovered? No matter where you stand, one thing is difficult to ignore. The Travis Walton case continues to challenge simple explanations. Multiple witnesses, a 5-day disappearance, decades of consistent testimony, and a story that has only become stranger with time. Perhaps the biggest mystery isn't what happened to Travis. Perhaps the biggest mystery is why. Why would an advanced intelligence take interest in humanity at all? Is it our planet? After all, Earth is an extraordinarily rare world filled with life, water, and biodiversity. Could we simply be part of a scientific study on a cosmic scale? Or is there something unique about human consciousness itself? Our creativity, our emotions, our ability to imagine, dream, and ask questions about our own existence. And then there is the possibility that humanity's value extends beyond the physical world. Many ancient traditions, religions, and modern experiencers have arrived at a surprisingly similar conclusion: that there is something more to us than flesh and bone. Something that survives beyond the body, something we often call the soul. If that idea is true, it may explain why encounters throughout history have so often crossed the boundaries between the physical, the spiritual, and the unexplained. The truth is, we don't know, and perhaps that's exactly where we should be. Because whether Travis Walton encountered extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, something spiritual, or something we have yet to imagine, his story forces us to confront a question far bigger than UFOs. What are we? And why might something out there be interested in us at all? Until we answer that question, the mystery of Travis Walton may remain only partially solved.